When you operate from a solutions-based mindset, your problems become paychecks. Stop running from the only thing that's going to make you wealthy. What up? Back with another episode of From the Bottom podcast. We got Fitz, Ty,
gang.
We got Aaron, A.K.A Rug Sweater, A.K.A.
Damn.
A.K.A Big Five. How y'all doing?
Go ahead, Aaron. Get him.
I'm chilling, man. I'm just waking up.
All right, we got Aaron just waking up. What about you, Ty?
This man said rug sweater. I'm so done with you, bro.
He came for me. He
Man,
came for the hair.
I can't complain, man. Life is life, man. Can't complain. Just keep moving forward.
Versace, though. Look at him. Not
Versace?
anybody can wear that fancy shirt.
This ain't Versace. This is, I
It's
don't even know what
Gucci?
this is. This is Guess. That's
Hello?
Guess.
I'm in the podcast right now, baby.
You can't be
Taken.
talking on the
Love
phone
it.
with your girlfriend while you're doing the podcast, dude.
Right? She done put something on in there where he got the answer during the podcast.
Hey, I swear I'm not with her.
I was talking to Fitz's mama. What you talking about? So she can't be calling me during this time.
You
With
see that?
With that mallow hoodie on.
You see?
Like he's warming up for some type of special event.
I am, bro.
You need to cut that hair.
See,
You,
who's you?
Fitz?
the one I'm talking to.
We don't know who you
I
talking
think
to.
you talking to mama.
Both of you. Okay, both of you. But I'm
Nah,
talking
bro.
about the one who's hiding that big ass fro underneath that hoodie.
Nah, I ain't no fro right now.
Hey,
His
we just
head
trying
looks
to be
bigger
our
than
authentic
mine in
self.
that hoodie.
Why is everybody always trying to get black people to cut their hair?
Yeah. It's the white man's doing.
Yeah.
Oppressor.
Because your head looks lopsided with all that
Colonizer.
hair.
You said my head looks lopsided?
Yeah, well, yours too, but
Hey.
talking to that other guy in that red hoodie.
We just sometimes we just out here having fun. We're gonna get Aaron back though. I'm gonna think of some stuff during the podcast and throw it out there, but I know I asked y'all.
What do you want to say?
I just want to check up, see how everything's going since last week. I know you said everything's good. You're just tired, been working, but any goals you set? Anything you can give us some insight in? The people want to
Just
hear.
trying to get people to answer the phone.
Who's people?
They don't know how to call people back.
I called you back. Let's just give some names to it. I called back last night.
What time did you call?
Probably like
late
7.
Yep.
Still at work.
That sounds like Fitz.
I don't know your schedule.
No, I don't know yours either. All I know is that you're supposed to answer your voicemails because you're a businessman.
You don't leave voicemails. You just
return
call.
them calls. Who called me?
I seen that you called.
One of my business partners.
I seen that you called and I called you back when I had time.
See, you got to have time all the time. You're slacking if you ain't got time all the time.
Nah, you just got to know how to spend your time.
Well, I mean, if I work 12 hours a day and still got time to call people and still figure stuff out, I know that your time
Talk your talk, boy.
is the same as my time.
We
got 24 hours. Nobody's time is different. Just 24 hours a day.
So how should I spend my time then?
Just whatever you're doing, man. I mean, you're living, you're working, you're doing your life. I'm just giving you heat. You gotta return all the phone calls, call all the missed calls.
I did.
Just like
I
just like
called
I
back.
gotta do all day. When somebody calls me and says, "Hey, my medication is running out," I can't be like, "I'm gonna call them 5 days later and see if they're still good."
I mean, if they don't leave a voicemail, I ain't calling back. It ain't
I
important
mean,
enough.
I call back. I text back. It may not be on anyone's time, but it's on my time. I don't know.
We're on Robert's time, not
He
the
be,
world's time.
he be busy.
I try. I mean, I get up at 5 a.m. every day, knock out my work by 9 a.m. and then just.
Yeah. Anyway, y'all, welcome to From the Bottom
This
podcast.
I already
guy.
said that.
You better say that.
Today we're hanging out with Ty and Fitz. You know, your boy Aaron,
This
Aaron
guy.
Balake. You can call me Old Fitz. What we're talking about right now is how we stay authentic, how we keep
Man, we
real to
gonna get into
ourselves.
that. You have to let me look at him.
Oh, I can't introduction like
You
This
got
guy.
you got finesse it in. I still had some stuff I wanted to talk about before I introduced it.
while we're introducing it right now.
Oh, he trying to get into it. Okay, well, we'll get into it. What it
authentic self.
I made the fatal mistake a few weeks ago of using a definition that was provided by the dictionary. So I want to start this out by asking you, what is your definition of authentic self? Like being authentic.
Go ahead, Aaron. You got it.
Oh, this is my okay. Let me
Yeah.
get ready.
Fluff
Since
up
I'm
the
on the
rug.
spot.
Yep. The rug, bro.
It's warm, you know, it's 3 degrees outside, but no heat. I'm authentic all the time.
But what is your definition of authentic?
Are we talking about a dictionary definition or
We're
what I
talking
think
about
it means to me?
what it means to you.
I treat everybody the same all the time. I don't have any negative stereotypes towards anybody, no matter their creed, color, nationality, or sexual preference. I see people as people. I'm just a person. So for me to go outside my box and cast judgment upon somebody for whatever they're doing or what they're not doing or who they are or who they're not is against myself. I guess I could say the way I appreciate myself, my authentic self. So, you know, I do my best. Like right now, I'm up here. Most of the population up here, the working force, are Hispanic people from Mexico, people I see on a daily basis when they come to the hospital. The majority of them are minorities. The other rest of them here or there, but whether they're brown, purple, yellow, green, up, down, left, or right, there's no reason for me to pass any type of judgment on them, except they're the person who's going to work, trying to support themselves, maybe trying to support their family, maybe they're a single parent trying to raise their kids. But at the end of the day, all I see is somebody who I'm trying to influence and impact them on the way that I help them negotiate their healthcare, how I help them figure out how they're going to get better.
So your authentic self is not judging people.
Now, I mean, my authentic self is a lot of things, but as long as I don't judge person, like I talk a lot of stuff. I don't talk stuff to people I don't know, but at the end of the day, it don't matter what you look like or who you are. All I'm trying to do is figure out what type of person you are. If you're out there murdering and killing and doing stuff that isn't right and you're doing wrong towards people, then maybe you're somebody I don't like. But If you're just a person who's trying to get by or trying to be better or trying to establish yourself or trying to establish your family, I can't say nothing about it. Everybody's got a right to live, everybody's got a right to themselves, and everybody's got a right to, I guess, like they say, be non-persecuted and not worry about the color of their skin or the religion or the language they speak. Because when it all boils down at the end of the day, it's about humanity. We're all humans. We're all the same species.
So would you agree? Would you let me know what you guys think of this?
Ah,
So I get what you're saying. Like it sounds like you're talking about not discriminating against people or judging them. So looking at it in terms of like being authentic, when I think of being authentic, I think of like being your real self. So like when you go to a job interview, are you trying to change how you talk because you don't want them to know how you really talk because you think you won't get the job? Or, like if you're in a relationship, like when you first start dating, are you trying to like be someone you're not and then hopefully introduce them to who you really are at a different time? So that's what I think of when I think of like being your authentic self, like who you really are. And then when you're interacting with other people, are you that same person? What do you
Well, I
guys
mean, it depends. Like if you go on a date, I mean, I'm at the age now, almost 36 years. I've been in a few long-term relationships. I've dated people, I've been around people. And I mean, at the end of the day, it just depends. If you, I mean, if you feel like you're perfect and you have nothing to hide and everything you've done is, you know, I guess for better lack of terms, a law-abiding citizen, you don't go on a date and say, hey, I used to sell drugs, or I did a drive-by, or I cheated on 3 people, or I have 6 kids at that point in time. Just because we're talking about the relationship, you're just trying to introduce yourself, what you feel is your basic, I guess, for again, a lack of better terms, just your basic personality and your basic persona. But I mean, if we were trying to be real 100%, whether it was a relationship or a job interview or meeting new friends, you'd be like, hey, my name's Aaron. I messed up a lot of things. I'm hoping that you could look past that. And this is what I have to offer. But I mean, at the end of the day, nobody does that. I feel like maybe you're cool with your friends, maybe you're cool with your family, but at the end of the day, there's always something else. There's always a different mindset. Maybe you explain something to somebody who's close to you and they don't want to appreciate, just like we were talking about last video, the exception of new information. So then maybe that makes you think different about them, which makes you feel like you need to be different around them because they're not on the same level or they're not on the same wavelength and they're not trying to accomplish the same things. So sometimes you, I guess, slowly ease these persons off of trying to be a part of your life, or you just go cold turkey and stop talking to them. But it's hard to say what's authentic and what's not, because every circumstance and every situation, at least in my experience, determines the way you're going to present yourself. I'm not going to go to the interview and tell them, hey, I'm struggling, I'm in debt, I've been through this in my life, yada, yada, yada. They're not, I guess if we go back to the job thing, they're not trying to understand your shortcomings or your struggles in life. They're just trying to figure out, like, do you functionally have the skills and the assets that we need for you to come to work?
Well,
So
yeah.
when you
So let me interject real quick and say, like, I'm not necessarily talking about disclosing your history. What I'm talking about is like a direct question or something that you know you're against, but you compromise because you want the relationship to work. So that with that same example, if you were to go into the job interview and they were like, okay, in this job, you're going to have to deal with people that scream at you, that cuss at you, that hit you, that spit on you, that do all these things. Are you okay with that? Like, do you want, and you know you're not okay with it, but you tell them you are just to get the job. That's what I'm saying. Like, you know that you're not okay with this, but you say like, yeah, I'm okay with it. But you know every day you go home, you're not okay with it. You know after that interview, you're not okay with it. You know all those things, but because you want that job, you say yes. To me, that's not being your authentic self because you know one thing, but you're behaving in a different way.
Yep.
So that's more so what I'm talking about. And um as far as like new information goes, I think one of the issues is that we don't lead with our authentic self, and we plan on introducing our authentic self sometime in the future, but nobody wants our authentic self after you've already been somebody else for so long.
Mm.
What do you
Yeah.
guys think about that? Like how should
Yeah.
you lead with your authentic self, or should you lead with the person you think they want you to be and then introduce your authentic self later on?
It depends on the person. For me, authentic means being your true self. What you say in life aligns with your actions.
Mm.
So, staying true to who you are no matter what people think. For me, I'm always be my authentic self no matter what. I don't care what people say. I don't care what people think. If I did, I wouldn't be who I am. I think it depends on the person because a lot of people want to fit in or they don't want to be shamed. It's kind of like what we talked about earlier about black people in their hair. There's people that want black people to cut their hair. Black people or their authentic self, like you right now. Your authentic self with your hair. Like you feel like that's a part of you. That's your identity. So that's your authentic self.
Yeah, and I've been to multiple jobs where it's like, you know, do they want me to cut my hair? Are they gonna hire me because of my hair? What are they gonna say? And I walk right in there with my locks or my braids or whatever, my afro, and it's like if they hire me, they hire me. If they don't, they don't.
Hmm.
But what I wanted to dive deeper into is this idea of leading with your authentic self, because I think so many people, they I think many people don't know who they are, but I think out of the people that do know who they are, they don't necessarily want other people to know who they are. So they lead with who they think other people want them to be. And then they live like that for so long that they don't know what to go back to. Like they don't recognize who they were before. And now this fake version of themselves that they've been living is now their authentic self, and they're unhappy with that person. So how do we get to a point to where we are living as our authentic selves while also getting the things we want out of life? What does that look like for you guys?
Well, sorry, because I'm looking at other things for work in a little bit, but it just feels like it's even, even if you're rolling there with your hair and your ethnicity and you're proud of who you are, you just still at the end of the day, we'll just use me to move forward and try to get back into a spot where I could utilize some of my skills and my education and further that. If that's the only thing that I ever do, I didn't roll in there and they'll be like, hey, tell me about yourself. The first thing that doesn't come out of my mouth is like, hey, I was gonna do this. but I got in trouble, did things that are against the law, things that are negative or perceived negative against society. So, I mean, even though I know that's part of me, I guess you could say that's not me being authentic or true to myself, or being, I mean, believing what I feel is the right thing to do, because I know at the end of the day, there's a fine line between what people need to know and who I am. So if people, whether it's a job or relationship, friendships, a business opportunity, a business partner, if you tell them everything, there's a stereotype and there's a stigma that says, oh, well, if you did this, that makes you a bad person. You're not right. You'll always be wrong. You have a negative influence on society, regardless of what you did before that point. Now,
Do you truly
people
believe
who,
that?
I do, because
Do you believe that
even
you
at,
have a
even
negative impact though on society?
even at the end of the day, I'm not saying I have a negative impact, but society and the way people perceive people doesn't allow you. I mean, if I could go into a job interview, be like, hey, I got a DWAI, I went to all this stuff, I struggled, I've been through all these things in my life, they're not going to look at me as the same. Therefore, my values and my education and the things that I've done. Now, this is just me thinking off the stigma of what society feels like accepted. Like, so if I felt like society only accepted me off of the few positive things that I've been doing versus a lot of the negative things I've been doing, I guess I can't be 100% authentic to myself, and I can't put myself out there as me, because if you want to know about me, you need to know about all the negativity and the things that were right or wrong till I got to this point. So you feel like sometimes people won't understand or won't appreciate or undervalue who you are because you made a mistake, or that circumstances are different, or you have a different mindset now, or you've come a long way to try to improve yourself. A lot of people, and I still feel like on the other side of it, the people who are listening to you and just the example wanting to hire you for the job, maybe you're feeling like they never did anything wrong. Maybe they're only the manager, the hiring person, or the supervisor in charge of the company because they had a silver spoon and they never had to struggle with anything, or they never had any type of circumstances in their lives that made them feel like, right now, the only thing I know is negativity. But we got to remember, because we keep on touching about, like, and we just brought it up, like, most people want Black people to look a certain way. But let's not forget, like, this is humanity. We're all the same species. We all evolved from the same exact environment. White people done wrong, Black people done wrong, Mexican people done wrong, Asian people done wrong. There's not nobody that can say I've never done anything wrong to make them feel like their authentic self is just, I'm on a pedestal. I'm perfect. Everybody appreciates me. Everybody knows who I am. Everybody respects me. Because at the end of the day, when you start thinking that you can no longer think of yourself as anything but this perfection of life, that's when you forget about what really happens.
Well, I
Now, you
think
can feel great.
the authentic self thing is like, it's not about perfection, it's about being you. But like I was saying earlier, as far as disclosing information, like for the job interview thing, if you went into the interview and they were asking you questions and you didn't want to disclose like some things you did in your past because you know that they don't know you and they may judge you based on that, that's cool. I'm not mad at that. What I'm specifically talking about is like, if it's things that you're going to have to do at the job that you know you don't want to do, and that you know like you're gonna be unhappy, like you know you're gonna be unhappy, do the yeah, if you want the job bad enough, you need the paycheck, you're gonna say, yeah, I don't mind doing that. But what I'm saying is that becomes people's permanent situation, and then they live that so long that then they become happy and unhappy in the long run, because they're not doing things that authentically make them happy, and they're doing things over and over and over again that they know that they don't want to do, but then they just get trapped in it because they never introduce their real selves. And I'll give you an example. Like with me, I'm like a laid back reserved person, and you know I just chill. And it's not until like I'm debating somebody or arguing with them or I feel disrespected that another side of me comes out, and then people get surprised. And then they don't want to mess with me no more because it's like, well, I didn't know that you would stand up for yourself like that. Or I didn't know that, you know, you would say a certain thing if I came at you a certain way, because they're used to me being a certain way. But then in different situations, I react differently. So what I'm saying is I would never put myself in a situation where I knew, like, for instance, Steve Jobs, he talked to his people like trash. Like if you watch the interviews in the movies, they say he talked to his employees like trash. He would put them down, cuss at them, yell at him. I would never get in a job and continue working there if that happened to me. And that's honestly why I became an entrepreneur, is because I know there are a lot of racial issues with hiring and pay and things like that. I've been through it myself. And I didn't want to be in a situation where someone was being racist or I wasn't being valued and I had to quit the job and then my family suffered. So I decided to take it into my own hands and take control of that. What I'm saying is, like, as far as being authentic, if we don't lead with authenticity, then how can we ever truly get in situations to where we're going to be happy?
Mm, you can't. You're gonna find yourself always being unhappy. If you're not your authentic self goes beyond what you do for a living, what possessions you own, who you are as a family member, you know, brother, dad, whatever. Um, it's who you are at your core belief. You know, Aaron talks about a lot about his mistakes, but even that, people make mistakes, man. It doesn't mean that's who you are at your core belief. You might have just did some things that you felt like you had to do. You know, whatever situation that might be. Um, but I don't think we'll ever. I don't think people. I wouldn't say we. Um, I don't think people ever will ever be happy with them authentic selves because they see everything else, social media, the news media. They see all these celebrities, these superstars, athletes, and they're always constantly judging themselves or comparing themselves to them. And they, like you said, Fitz, they put on this fake persona, this almost fake person, and once you do that for so long, eventually you're gonna believe it. You're gonna believe that's who
Yeah.
I am. This is what I do. Like, and that's why they're unhappy. They'll never be happy because they're not their authentic self. They're somebody else. Their image of somebody else to fit into society.
And let me paint a picture real
Well, so
quick.
then that's the thing. You just
Oh,
said the image of somebody else to fit on society.
Mm-hmm.
mhm.
So about 2 months ago, they started coming out with these, you know, when Black Lives Matter was a big thing,
Mm-hmm.
they started coming out with these commercials and these advertisements and these little stick in positions where this is who I am. And of course, because it was Black Lives Matter, a lot of it was centered around African American people.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this thing, so you go to the job interview and you put the suit on and the tie and you fix yourself up, you take your shower, you comb your hair, you make yourself look like a professional.
Mhm.
So then you have this guy on the TV, black dude, could be from anywhere, Compton, Florida, New York, maybe even Africa. He came across here on the boat and he don't speak English. But here's this guy sitting there in a hoodie, looks like a hoodlum, looks like your basic dude on the streets,
Mm-hmm.
just chilling. And then they cut to the next segment and they present this same guy with his official title and who he is as a doctor, or a business owner or a philanthropist or an entrepreneur. And they're doing what they got to do to survive and provide and get by. But at the end of the day, if you just see this guy walking down the street in his hoodie and he's of a minority descent, or maybe he's a white guy who's hanging out with the black community, now all of a sudden we're wondering what the white guy's doing in the black community, but we don't understand who they are or what they're from. So like I said, there's a fine line of how you present yourself and what people expect, because you wouldn't expect the doctor who's done 8 years of education and is supposed to be like this almighty being of society who doesn't do anything but help people and uses his knowledge and experience to, you know, COVID times, help people get through the pandemic and lead a normal life. But when you see the same dude out on the street, you're not going to step to him and be like, hey, Dr. So and so, or hey, I appreciate who you are. All you see is the stigma and the social image of who they're supposed to be and not who they are. So I feel like it doesn't matter whether you're Robert, Ty, myself, a doctor, Bill Gates, Donald Trump, Joe Biden. Like there's always circumstances and different environments where you have to not change who you are, but minimize the influence of where you came from so that people aren't just stuck on, oh, he's from the streets or he's from the hood. Because if you think about right now, people aren't going to respect you if you come from nothing or you've done nothing. Now, if you're a doctor, yes, maybe they'll say, like, he's come a long way, he's worked hard. Now we have to respect him because he has a title that says he deserves respect. But there's a lot of people who, just like, what's her name, Breonna Taylor. Things happened to her and she got into circumstances and her life ended just because of where she was established and what type of ethnicity she was. But then when we boiled it down, we just found out she's a basic person trying to do good. And now all of a sudden, everybody's like, wow, what did we do? Nobody thought about that beforehand. So if we were all our authentic self, we wouldn't go into any type of circumstance or environment or social gathering or business gathering or family gathering trying to make people think that we should be accepted. Because even like Robert said, there's plenty of times that he was working or doing things where he didn't feel like he was going to be accepted. So do I change myself or do I not? So if the person who was sitting on the other side of the table was like, you know what, even though Robert's head is lopsided because he hasn't cut his hair, he's still a good guy. He's still got values. He still means something. He's still a person. He can still do something that's valuable. But nobody does that because everybody's tied into the influences of our family beliefs, our historical beliefs, our social media beliefs, are just the impact on society, the way it establishes who we are. Because right now, you know, we can't go out and hang out with people and talk to people and do things because of COVID-19. So therefore, it changes everybody's perception of themselves, their values versus other people's values. And I'm not saying that they change themselves to be a different person, but right now, everybody's bad. This is the same thing, just if we put it in layman's terms, as COVID-19 is almost just like the basic inequalities, civil rights movements, things that have been going on for minorities for years. But this is the first time where everybody is afraid of everybody. So now how do we take the stigma of being worried about everybody's well-being, like it don't matter if you're black, white, brown, or yellow, We're all in the same circumstance right now. So how do we take that and harness that vulnerability? And once all this is done, still appreciate everybody for who they are. Because right now, that's what we have to do. It don't matter if you have a mask and you're Asian, if you're white, if you're from a different country. We're just all worried kind of about the same thing. Like, I don't want to get sick. I don't want to die. I don't want my family to be hurt. I don't want my loved ones to be hurt. So I think if we're going to be authentic, and just my perception, if a lot of people, old and young, harness that vulnerability and understand again that it don't matter what your skin color is, but it matters that we're all part of humanity, then we'll see a lot of people becoming more authentic with them true selves. Like, it was amazing. You don't think to see that all these young people, all these youth, all these people who've been influenced by a lot of negative stigma for years and years and years, racism, inequality, better jobs, good jobs, my family's rich, your family's poor. Like right now, everybody's feeling the impact. And if we don't pull together and just be authentic and have appreciation and love for just the humanity, it's still going to remain the same. It don't matter that Joe Biden's in here. It don't matter if the next president's a woman. And until we appreciate the authenticity of humanity, we're always going to have a problem.
Well, what do you?
I'm not going to feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable.
To an
Like,
extent.
I'm trying to get more proficient for myself to get better at speaking more fluently with my Spanish, so I could take care of the population of people that I'm around. Or I could just not care and not be my authentic self, and everything that I've been saying, not worried about just the basic humanity and the basic respect that we are all humans, we all have vulnerabilities, we all could die tomorrow. Anything can happen today. If I don't appreciate everybody, then I'm never going to be my authentic self.
For you, right?
Yeah. So for you, you're saying your authentic self is just appreciating everybody. And if you were at your job and they said, well, Aaron, you have to treat this client different than this client because of their race, your authentic self would say, well, no, I'm not going to do that. And so I was going to paint a picture and let me know what you guys think about this. You know, in regards to authentic self, I think one of the biggest problems is, like I was saying earlier, we get so far away from our authentic self that we no longer recognize them. And I think a lot of people can relate to this. Like, if you've ever been living in a city or a place and you left it for a while, let's say you've been gone for like 3-4 years. And in between that 3 or 4 years, they've put up new buildings, they've, new stores, more different populations have moved there, people have died, people, things have changed, they've put up new apartments, and then you come back after 4 or 5 years and you don't even recognize the place. Like, it's like, oh, well, that's where this used to be, or that's where that used to be, or like, it looks completely different than what you remember. And if you try to use your old blueprint of what you knew the place as, you're gonna get it wrong. Like Pueblo in different cities, they're not like they were in the 1960s. There's buildings, there's different businesses. So a lot of people will leave their authentic self for so long and then come back and try to use the same blueprint that they had before. What do you guys think about that?
100%. Um, I think that hits home because my city got hit by a hurricane about 2018, destroyed everything. So when I went back there, because I was in Colorado for probably 5 years at the time, and I hadn't been home probably in like a few years. So when I went down, everything was gone, everything was destroyed. And then when I went back down a year after that to actually be with my family and stuff, there was a big difference. I felt like I played myself because I lived in Colorado for so long, and I think more states on the West Coast are a little bit more developed as far as the state goes. Are moving forward. passing new things. To whereas my city stayed the same, even through a hurricane, they were still the same. Um, and I don't think I really could maneuver like how I wanted to maneuver. A lot of good things did happen for me, but I knew that I was in a place that wasn't moving forward, that was just stagnant. And I felt like for so long, I'm like, damn, man, like, why am I here, bro? Like this, like I'm here for my family, but it's like it was killing me inside because they were okay with being out there. For me, it was like there's so much more out there, like we're missing out.
Yeah. Well, okay, and I think that's important to touch upon is environment. And Aaron was like alluding to this point of we all can't be our authentic self because if we are, nobody would like us, or like we wouldn't really get the things that we wanted. And I'm just gonna push back and say, like that's where I think the unhappiness comes from, is because we think that other people won't accept us for our true selves, and then we get in these relationships or these jobs, and then we try to be our true selves, and then they have so much power over you that you're like, okay, I can't be my true self now. But now you have a mortgage, now you have bills to pay, now you have a family, and you just set yourself up to be unhappy because you didn't lead with your authentic self. Instead of just saying, I'm going to go in this job and like, no, I'm not going to disclose my whole history, or I'm going to get in this relationship and I'm not going to disclose everything. But if for instance I'm in a relationship and she asks me to cut my hair and I don't want to cut my hair, I'm not going to do it just because I want to try to impress her right away. I'm going to say no, like this is what I think about my hair, this and this. So what I'm saying is that sometimes you have to put yourself in the right environment, and sometimes that means getting rejected from other environments. And I look at that as a positive thing, like a filter. If I go to a job and they tell me they don't want to hire me because of my hair, I clap, because it's like now I don't have to spend a few years wondering if they were racist and this and that and getting in arguments and then having to do all this crazy stuff. Now that's 3 years that I saved off of my life, like from my life. That's 3 years I can do. Yeah. I can go find something else to do. Yeah. So I look at it like when you're your authentic self, it's a filter. You're filtering out the things that are for you and the things that are against you. And I think that's a positive. It's like your authentic self is a filter. And so many times we want to ignore the filter because we just want everything. And we don't truly know what we want. And so we get in these situations and then we find out that this isn't what I actually want. But then you're not in a position to change anything because you've given somebody so much power. Like you've told them, I'm this person, I will be this person. And then when you change, then they don't want to mess with you. Whereas if you were that person from the beginning and they knew that and they hired you, then it's like you knew who I was. But if we don't lead with our authentic self, how are we ever going to filter out the things that are not really for us?
Talk your stuff, boy.
No, I really want to know, because I see this coming up so much like I don't have a choice. I don't have a choice. If I don't do this, then they're not going to do this. It's like you do have a choice though. And you're going to be unhappy in the long run if you don't make the choice that you need to make. It's like, I don't know. I get confused at it. Maybe you guys can help me out because I don't understand it.
I'm with you. For me, I'm always my authentic self no matter what. Obviously, you have to be aware of your environment. That obviously that's a thing. But no matter where I go, man, who I'm with, I don't care if I was with Joe Biden, a CEO. I don't care, bro. Like, I'm my authentic self no matter what. Who I am is important to me. And whether you dislike it, whether you like it, whether you agree with it, whether you don't agree with it, it don't make a difference. You like it, cool. You don't like it, hey, it is what it is. Like,
and you have a choice. Like, I remember one time I was talking to my dad. We were at like a Thanksgiving dinner. We were at somebody's house. Yeah. And there was a person that was cooking there, and he was like, talking about the food. Like, oh, this food is so good. This food is so great. He like cooked it all. Right. I was talking to my dad, and my dad was like, being his authentic self, he was telling me like, hey, like, I don't like coming to like parties and stuff like that, because the people, they want you to lie to them like if the food isn't good. And he was like, most people would be mad at me if they asked me if the food tasted good and I told them that I thought it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I realized, he was like, if they asked me, I would tell them like my honest opinion, like, no, it doesn't. Or, like somebody will ask you how they look. And if you're honest with them, then they get mad or upset.
Mm-hmm.
So what I've always thought of your authentic self as being like, like that filter. It just keeps, the filter word just makes so much sense to me,
Yep.
because when you are your authentic self, you know it, and when you're not, you also know it.
Yeah.
And I think so many people are so afraid to be their authentic self because they don't know what's on the other side, and they have been their not authentic self for so long that they don't have enough confidence to stand behind who they think they are.
Right. 100%.
And I honestly think that it goes back to just not taking enough time for yourself.
Oh yeah,
Like,
reflection.
yeah, reflection, and our
100%, bro.
identities are so caught up in like a job
Mm-hmm.
or a
Social
relationship.
media, friends.
Yeah, so all of these external things that we think our authentic self is that. We think our authentic self is the social media and the relationship and the job, but then behind closed doors we take off that mask, and you can't stop talking crap about the people you work with or the
Yep.
job.
Yep.
So I don't know, how do we help people that are dealing with that?
Mm, man, people gotta do it themselves. Like we talked about earlier, man, we enable people so much because people are entitled now. Um, People have to do a sit down and reflect on, is this who I am? Who are my friends? There's a quote.
What are they entitled to? Like, what do you feel like they're entitled to?
I feel like there's like, for our generation and generations before, we had to work for everything. I feel like now with these later generations, everything's handed to them. There's no actual work being put in to get what they want. And I'm not talking about like parents working their butt off to provide for their kid and give them anything they want. I'm talking about more of, hey, we're gonna have you do this, so you understand the value of this. I just feel like there's so much entitlement, and we have to the older generations have to adapt to them, and that shouldn't be the case because that's not who we are. Like we come from hardworking backgrounds. Like we not just sitting on our butts, complaining about everything. Um, I think you have to be a gatekeeper when it comes to yourself, like you said, a filter, but I think a gatekeeper. So when your physical self is content, it's easier to connect with your authentic self. So when you're where you want to be at life, who you're around, relationship, whatever. Once you're content with that, you'll be able to connect more with who you are. And I think always listening to yourself. I think a lot of people don't listen to their gut. People say, always listen to your gut, always listen to your gut, and people don't do that, and then they end up in situations where they're like, oh man, I felt that in my head or my chest or my stomach, and I still put myself in that position without listening to myself. Um, and I think people need to shut up the should. Oh, I should have done this or I could have done this and la da 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 da. You gotta shut that up because you can do it. It's just gonna take time, patience, and effort.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people want to make people or jobs like them.
Yeah,
There's the days are gone of, like you just can't like someone. It's
right.
like, no, I'm gonna make you. Like it's
Yeah,
like if you try to get in a relationship with somebody and they're like, no, I don't like you, whatever, and it's like, well, now I'm gonna get you fired from your job, or now I'm gonna,
mhm,
like, why can't we just accept like some things are not for us? Like some, like you said, gatekeeper. And I
mhm,
think one of the issues is like you were talking about that feeling of entitlement now.
mhm,
Like there is no, like, oh, I went and applied for this job and they didn't hire me. And now it's like, there can't just be, well, I'm going to apply for a different job or I'm going to start my own business. It's like, well,
right,
no, now I'm going to make sure that there's a reason outside of me. Like
right.
I'm going to make it to where I don't have to do anything, or, like, it's weird. it's weird because I feel like instead of developing an authentic self and going where that authentic self can thrive, we want to change the environment instead of making an environment. Like we'd rather change an environment than make an environment.
Let me quote that boy E.T. E.T. He said, I think it was him. It might have been Les Brown. I can't remember who it was. It said, "Go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated."
Yeah.
Just like that. Go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated, and that's in any environment. Like it. We talk a lot about jobs, man. If that job can't accept you for who you are, it ain't for you, bro. Like 100%.
What was that quote again?
Go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated.
So pretty much what you're saying is Aaron should go to Rug World because they going to celebrate him.
Well, anyway, what I was gonna say is E.T. said that in like 2017, and a lot has changed since then. But you guys keep on saying this filter, and I've heard you, Ty, say a few times being content. And then I also heard Robert giving this example about, if I'm at work and something happens and it makes me lose my job or puts me on probation or now I got a red light, I'm going to make sure that somebody else also has that same circumstance. So, I mean, I understand. Yeah, go. Don't go somewhere where you're tolerated. Go somewhere where they appreciate who you are. But what are we talking about when it comes to appreciation? Because no job is going to appreciate who you are unless you have the education or the skills or the backgrounds for them to appreciate you. But on the other end of it is the only reason they're going to develop some type of appreciation for you is because at the beginning, we're going to tolerate who you are because of the experience or the knowledge that you have. But kind of what I was touching on is myself, me being authentic and me treating everybody the same ties into the filter, ties into the appreciation and people tolerating me and then people respecting me and people wanting me to be where I'm at because of who I am. So just the example I was going to give, I've been up here where I'm at now, not knowing if I'm appreciated, not even knowing if they're going to tolerate me. I'm just putting in the work. So now my work and the way I treat people is allowing them to switch from that mode of, I guess, just tolerating who he is to accepting who he is, to appreciating who he is, and developing who he is. So now I value who he is. So now that I've been up here doing that, just out of the blue, and just because we were talking about it, there's this young lady that now I'm working with. I never met her. I didn't know she existed. I never understood who she was. But before I met her, there was a guy who I was working with who had these underlying circumstances for however he felt the way he felt and decided, I guess this is the time where I go out, drink 30 beers, put a gun to my face and just end it all. Because now people are going to tolerate me and appreciate me and understand what I was trying to do. So then I come up here and I start working in this place that I've been working for years, but now I'm living. And I met this young lady at work and, we just started chatting, doing all this other stuff, just me being my authentic self, respecting who she was, respecting what she was doing, and expecting where she comes from. And I learned that this woman was the same exact person. I guess you could say, for better lack of terms, his ex-wife, but still his wife, he decided to end his life. And he put all these unbearable circumstances on this young woman where she could either change who she was, felt different about things she was doing, or she could accept what had happened and still continue to be her authentic self. So just the way the conversation went, she was like, "Oh, well, I think you know my husband." "Well, who's your husband?" "This guy." "Oh." And I got stuck for a minute because I was like, should I put a filter on and not ask the questions that I would ask and be my real self towards her, regardless if it would make her feel uncomfortable or make her not want to talk about things? But because I presented myself in the way that I am and who I am, I was like, hey, you know what? I know exactly who he is. And, I know what happened. I apologize. I know some of his friends. I worked with him for X amount of time. And I just had to sit there and think about it, because that's a circumstance that can make you change your authentic self real quick. Like your girlfriend or your boyfriend, your husband or your wife, if they end their life because there was struggle and things weren't going right, that girl should be doing a lot of different things. The perception is that that girl should be like shrugged down in, her little shell like a turtle, and she only pops out when she needs to. But she dealt with it. She's open about it. She talks about it. And now, even till this day, she's still wearing the wedding ring that her late husband bought her.
Mhm.
But she also had to be true to herself and realize that, hey, I'm still a young woman. I got a lot of things to do, a lot of stuff to accomplish, a lot of life to live. So, am I going to be true to myself and let this one circumstance, this outstanding traumatic circumstance, develop me and structure my life as a new person? Or should I just put that in the history books? It's a part of me. This is who I am. Just like myself, when I started talking to her about it, she wasn't shy. She wasn't scared. She wasn't like trying to be like ignorant or, oh, maybe that wasn't me, or I don't know what you're talking about. Or she was just real about it. This is what happened. This is how things happened. This is who I am now.
So are
Who
you
I am is,
disagreeing with us or agreeing with us?
I'm on both sides, dude, because this
Mm.
girl could have put a filter on and been like, that's not me. I'm not that person. This didn't happen to me. But on the other end of it is, she understands now that's who she is. So she can use that to let people understand, like, hey, I went through a lot. Probably one of the worst things besides losing somebody who's close to you to some type of medical disease or some type of accident that just came out of the blue. Like, she utilized that as strength, as power
Well, let me
to
ask you
make her.
this. When was a time where you were not your authentic self and you were okay with it?
Well, that's the thing, dude. I've never not been what I'm trying to perceive to you. Like, my authentic self is just being this person, you know. Just like earlier when I was looking at the phone and doing all these text messages and stuff, it looks like he's upset, he's depressed.
A midlife
I,
crisis.
I'm not upset and depressed because my face has a lot of stories. My face is the window and the keyhole to my soul.
Okay.
And there's a lot of
Shakespeare.
stigma and a lot of negativity, like, that goes into the way I'm looked at. So if Ty was being his authentic self, and even though we're just joking around, and Robert was being his authentic self, and just coming off my perspective, there wouldn't have been like, oh, you look like you're depressed and you're going through a midlife crisis. More as, well, hey, what's going on, man? Are you feeling good? Like, is there anything you want to talk about? And maybe there was something. But if somebody just comes out the books and says, oh, like, I already know that this guy's pissed off or he's upset or he's going through things just because of the way he looks, you'll never know. And that will never allow you to understand anybody else's true authentic self. So just off a quick like tidbit, if I looked at this girl and the things that I heard and the reasons that stuff went down in her life, and I didn't take the time to ask the questions and be real and be myself and get her side and understand her feelings and her emotions and her spirit, I would have never even knew who authentically she was. But because we had some sort of, I guess, crossroads and
Entanglement.
intersections in our life where we could meet up
Mm,
and I can appreciate who she was, I would have never known that this girl is who she was, but now she's also something else and she's
mm,
living with this burden. But this burden isn't going to make her who she is. The burden is just going to help her understand how she needs to be herself times 10. So now I
mm,
appreciate this girl and I value this person. And it's somebody when I see her at work, even if nobody else wants to speak to her because of who she is or the color of her skin or her gender, like I'm always going to be my authentic self and
mm,
appreciate her as a person because she took the time to allow me to understand that, hey, at the end of the day, I'm a person with a lot of differences and a lot of background and a lot of adversity and a lot of circumstances, but that doesn't make me different. That just makes me more valuable to myself. So
mm,
when you're more valuable to yourself, it don't matter where or who or how you come from or what you've been through. If you let people know 100, now I don't hold anything against her because she's in a relationship where somebody thought it was unbearable and they had to do something to prove themselves or make people feel sorry for them. She used that as an opportunity to understand that, hey, if I ever move on past this point, which she's doing, and now she's in a relationship, she knows the difference between going at it 100 miles an hour and not understanding who this person is versus now I really got to take my time and acknowledge the fact that this person is a person. This person has differences, and their authentic self isn't the same as my authentic self. And unless I can appreciate their 100%, they're never going to appreciate my 100%, which therefore makes me not 100% authentic. Because then I'm going to be sitting like you've been saying, what if, how come, what if I could have done different? What if I was just like, oh, you're that girl whose husband decided to end his life because he was weak? No,
mm.
that's not what it's about. You're this
Is
person
that what you
who
wanted
has
to say to her?
Yeah.
no. If I was not myself, if I was just trying to be a dickhead and not being caring and understanding and value every life and everybody's circumstances and everybody's own personal development, what that allowed me to do was to sit there and understand her perspective and how she feels about how things went down. Because at
Mm,
the end of the day, if I'm not going to be myself, maybe just that one interaction between me and her could have been the difference between her breaking point and her realizing that people understand her perspective. Because you always got to be empathetic. You always got to sympathize. And if you aren't able to do that in your own realm, in your own authentic self, people are going to know that. So if I was just like, oh, damn, that sucks. I'm sorry. Maybe things could have been different.
mhm.
Maybe she would have took that interaction and that new knowledge and learning about a new person as, oh, this guy's a jerk. He's a dick.
Well,
He
what if
don't
that's
care
really
about
what you
nobody.
thought? Like, what if you
But
just
that,
don't like small talk and you just don't know what to say?
That's
but
probably
well,
what I
that's
would
the
have
thing
said.
though. We keep on talking about 100%, dude. Like, if I was that way, then me and her would have never sat down for a 12-hour shift and talked about things that she's going through, ways that she's been. And I guess the highlight or the point was not to talk about the circumstance she went through, but you were talking about, Robert, how, if something happens bad to somebody, they're going to like try their best to make sure that they're not the only one doing bad. So this girl
Mhm,
took this opportunity, things are bad in her life, but now she has this house and she's trying to help people live. And, I'll give you a little bit cheaper rent as long as you respect my property and who I am. She ended up going down the line and being like, I'm still going to be myself and I'm not going to let this circumstance change me. So I want to help people that need help because that's who I am. And then this person ended up going down some negative road and her work she works as a nurse at the jail. So she does all this stuff for the inmates, you know, medications, visits, well-being, just prescribing stuff for things that they need to get. Like if you go to the hospital, obviously you can't do that in jail. So somebody was at the point where they were going to lose their job and they weren't respectful about what they were doing and who she was. So instead of just accepting the fact that maybe I made a mistake and my jobs might end, they ended up trying to put other people on the spot and spitting lies and telling stuff that ain't true just so other people can be in the same circumstance. So now this person, because they're not their authentic self and just can't be real with themselves, they're trying to tie other people's lives in and other things that are going on so that they can feel, well, you know, I feel good about myself because now I'm not the only one that's in the spotlight. I'm not the only one that's in trouble.
So misery loves company.
Misery
And
loves company, but if you let the company be the misery, then at the end of the day, and I'll get off this topic, this girl could have folded and been like, you know what, it is what it is. But she took a stand to be like, hey, you know, I've gone through a lot of things, but just because I've gone through these things doesn't mean that I'm happy because I'm still in medications for work and using these illegal ways to like
Damn.
self-medicate and make myself feel that I'm somebody. It's just somebody trying to utilize her misery, which she didn't allow be her company. And now they're trying to figure out a way to make it so that she is miserable and that she does get to that point where, you know, all I know is negativity right now. So it might as well just be the part of me that I know. Whereas this girl is like, you know what? I'm going to be true to myself. And I'm not going to, like you say, the misery in the company. Everybody's miserable. Everybody is like one
I
of the
don't think I'm
reasons.
miserable.
Well, maybe you're not. Maybe you're perfect. But at the end
This
of the
guy.
day, at the end of the day,
This guy.
then I guess that you're just this almighty well-being person who doesn't have no negative influence or no negative stigma. But if that was the case, you would have never been the guy who didn't take this job, didn't take this job, or you know, you felt disrespected when you were selling insurance at State Farm because the new guy got more pay, even though you were there longer. So maybe a better thing to say is that you know how to negotiate the negativity and put it on the back burner and just focus on things that are authentically yourself. But to say
Yeah.
that you don't have no misery or you don't have any underlining circumstances or worries or stuff that bothers you, to my extent and what I've been through and what I think, that's not being your 100% self, because everybody lays down at the end of the night and thinks about things that could have been different or ways that things could have been changed.
It
Even
depends.
though it's
Not me.
It depends on if you set aside time during the day to do that,
Yeah.
so that by the nighttime you can just chill and relax. That's one thing. But I didn't say that I didn't encounter things that were negative. I was just saying in general, I'm
you
not
don't your
miserable.
your company is not miserable. So what is your company?
I'm not miserable like as a person. Like when I think of somebody that's miserable, I think of like they wake up, they don't feel like they have anything to live for. They're constantly like, thinking about the past instead of the future. They don't have any goal.
So, and that's why there's this new stigma, and it's been around longer than Black Lives Matter. Mental health matters,
I
and
mean, I think
some
mental
people
health
are
does.
great at doing it. Some people aren't. But this is what I was saying. You know, if I would have took the time to be like, hey, I don't need to worry about that because your misery is your own problem,
Yeah.
and instead just giving a little bit of thoughtful insight or a little bit of perception into, an outside third party view, that's the difference between somebody being like, oh, maybe, I can think about things differently, or maybe I just need to be stuck. Maybe I don't have nobody to talk to. But if people,
Well, let me ask you a
again,
question. Let me pose a question, because this is something that I think about sometimes, is like, what if I'm just not good at small talk? Like, what if I don't want to talk to somebody if they're not willing to solve a problem? Like, what if I've
Mm.
talked to them so many times about this thing, and then at some point it's just draining because it's like, okay, I understand people want someone to talk to, but there's some people in your life that drain so much from you because you talk and you talk and you talk, and they always have a problem. But whenever you mention a solution, now you're the bad guy who thinks that you know everything and you're arrogant and this, and this. And at some point, what if you just don't like to hear people's problems all day, every day, and them not want to do anything about their problems? Like, I think you can be empathetic by saying, I respect what you're saying. You know, I'm going to keep it quick. I hope things get better. But I know if I talk to you about this thing, the way that I talk may not be the best for what you need. So I think I can be empathetic by not giving my input because you may not be ready to hear my input because you may not be ready to make a change.
Exactly. I think it's a certain extent you could be empathetic. Like, you got to be a person that protects your own energy and your own self, because if you're too empathetic, you're gonna take on their stuff, and you're gonna be upset, and it's not even a situation that you put that you're in yourself.
And the
Well,
empathy,
here's where I'm going to go with this. So I think we're sitting on this podcast not understanding the reason why we're sitting on here. We're not sitting on here to show people about how great we become because of where we come from. If we're going to eventually be sitting there talking to people and we have a place filled with people who want to understand and value our input, we got to be that person.
we do, but I think
We are.
we can
no matter
also
how many
filter.
no matter how many times you talk about the same thing until you get this person on track, if this person is going to lean on your shoulder because they have something that they want to hear, or you have some type of insight that they can relate to and you can relate to them, it's that thing. Like, there's going to be a lot of times if this continues to go down the road where we're going to have to put everybody's, not their burdens, and we're not going to let their life weigh our life down, but we're also going to have to understand that we're here to help people understand the heaviness or the circumstances of their life is something that we're here to try to help them negotiate. And maybe our perspective and our opinion or our perception on things is something that may not change their life and make things better, but it allows them to understand that people are going to at least take a few moments to relate to what I'm trying to put out in the universe, or they're just trying to let me understand that they understand that, hey, I know you're going through some things. Let me give you some helpful insight. So
But how many times should you do that? Like, I'm
it
talking about
depends.
a
I mean, if you're going to
one-on-one.
talk about your family, if you're going to talk about your family and you've been saying the same thing forever, or
Yeah.
you've been preaching the same thing forever, and then finally somebody learns some new information and now they're like, hey, guess what I learned? But you've been telling these people the same thing for the past year, but now all of a sudden, because they took it upon themselves to learn what you've been saying, now they'll be like, oh, this is what I learned and this is how we should do things. And then you're like, but wait a minute, that's what I've been telling you to do for a while. So now, did you do it just because it's you, or did you do it because there's been some subconscious form of yourself being like, I know I've been told this before, but unless I do it and research it myself, nobody's opinion is validated. Nobody knows nothing but me. So then you come to the point where the whole time you were negative or not understanding or thought that you were misguided in the information wasn't because the people who were giving you information didn't know anything, or they didn't have no credentials or no experience or nothing to say, hey, what they're saying is valuable. But now you're just saying, hey, you know what? I understand what you're saying because I learned it on my own. Was that because somebody's been telling you and telling you and telling you, and finally you decided to get some new knowledge? Or is it just because all of a sudden you decided one day I'm going to learn something, and then you forgot about the people who were telling you the same exact thing? So if you're
I
going to be
agree with
authentic to
that.
yourself, you got to realize from the bottom, whether it's life, family, business, opportunities, There's always somebody, if you're surrounding yourself with the right environment, there's always been somebody that's been saying, hey, let's look at it this way. Let's look at it that way. Or wait, I can't do that because I don't have the money. Well, it's not about the money. It's about the path that you're trying to pursue. And I've been trying to do that too. But now I'm trying to express a little bit of the downfalls that I've had to give you a little bit more knowledge and insight towards the path and the stumbles and the roads and the bumps that I've been through. So now our road is the same, but is your road different because of the knowledge that was placed upon you? Or is your road different because you were true to yourself and you took the time to absorb the new information to make a new circumstance? And now that this new circumstance has arose, do you undervalue the people who were trying to tell you that from the get-go because now you know it? Or do you appreciate it more because the people had been telling you, but now you have your own insight, so now we could try to make a better informed decision?
Well, I think that, you know, I agree with some of what you're saying, but I'm more so talking about somebody coming to me one-on-one and like expressing some problems that they're having. If I've already had multiple conversations with this person and it's obvious that they just want to talk about changing and don't really want to change, then I feel like I'm being empathetic to them by, you know, letting them know, like being short with them, letting them know like, hey, you know, I understand that you're going through some things, but I can't really keep talking to you about it because we've talked about it so much and now it's time for action to take place. And if that action doesn't take place, nothing's going to change. At some point, the change has to be the goal. If you just want to talk about it, then I think you should get somebody who has a personality that likes to talk about it. That's just not my personality, and I would do more damage than good. So me being my authentic self, I'm not trying to be mean to you when I keep saying, well, you know, this, that, and the third, and then you think I'm being mean to you. Some people just aren't ready to hear what I have to say, and maybe they want somebody who's going to talk to them. You know, like we've been talking about jobs this whole time. If you go to an interview and you tell the person that you're interviewing, like, or that's interviewing you, like, hey, I just want to talk about working here, but I don't actually want to work here. Do you think they're going to hire you? Like, if you're just like, well, I just want to talk about working here, but I don't actually want to come here and do the work that you want me to do. They don't want to hire you. Same thing with people. Like, I look at it as a good thing. Like, that's that filter. I don't want to work with people that just want to talk about their problems. That's why I'm not a psychologist. You know, like that's why I chose to get out of that field in psychology, is because I don't want to just hear people talk. I want people that are ready to make a change. And if you're not ready to make a change, then that's something that you have to work on. And I don't want to dedicate all of my time to just talking to somebody. Yeah, like I'll talk to you here and there if there's something going on, but I'm more solution based. And if there's no solution at some point, it's like I'll be there initially if you want to talk, but at some point, if you're not willing to make a change, then we can't keep talking about the same thing.
You wasting time, and it's like people who go to a rehab multiple times. Maybe the first 2 times, 3 times, you know, I can understand because you're trying to break out of it. But 4, 5, 6, 7, that's too much. At that point, it becomes more about you not wanting to do what you need to do to get where you are, like 100%. And I feel like, you know, we can be empathetic with people, but at the same time, people need to have a solution to what they're gonna do. You can talk about your problems, but you gotta figure it out. What's the next move? You can't just sit in your misery and just expect things to get better. You know, some of the people I look at, that's their authentic selves. And Aaron said something about this earlier about uh, appreciation and stuff like that. I think about Hispanic people, primarily Mexican people. They come to America with nothing, and they work, you know, mainly cleaning jobs. They do that type of stuff. Going into it, they're their authentic selves. They tell people they can't speak English, they can do this and this and this, and people still take them no matter what. No matter if they can't speak English, don't got papers, they're still their authentic self through the whole time. And once they hit like that 5 year mark, most of them have their own business. Most of them have some type of, restaurant, maybe cleaning business, construction. Like, so
So
I
they're
say
all trying
that,
to do something.
Huh?
well, huh?
I said, so all these people are trying to do something.
Yeah, like they're
Right.
not. They don't
They're
want to
they're
just
being
talk about it.
yeah, they're being authentic. That you and this is the thing. And I'm keep on touching on Mexican people. Mexican people come over here with nothing. They leave their country with nothing. Papers, everything. You don't hear them bitch one time about being here. You don't hear. Oh, my bad. I didn't mean to cuss. My bad. Excuse me. Let's rewind. You don't hear them complain about anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, they work hard, they put their head down, and they keep pushing forward because they came here for a reason. I think, and it goes back to my point earlier. We enable people, man. You could talk about it maybe once, twice, three times if you need to, because you need to get it out. Cool. What is the solution? I can't keep being empathetic to you when you keep talking about the same thing over and over and over again. Because then eventually I'm gonna take it on, and then we're both gonna be in the same boat. Misery loves company. I'm gonna be miserable with you because you're sad about this, this, and this, and this. My grandma died, and my mom lost it. Like, she didn't know how to act. And for me, we had our moment of grief. We had our moment of being sad. But I told her she needs to move on. She ain't coming back. You know, you got to live for her, and find your purpose and passion in life, um, and just keep moving forward. I was empathetic with her, but at the same time, it's like, okay, at some point, you got to get us together, 100%. We and like for the girl that you were speaking on specifically, you said that was her authentic self. It may not be her authentic self. She may go home and be miserable as hell. She might be screaming. She might go crazy. But some people put on that fake persona, like we talked about earlier, to the point where it's so good that we believe that's who they really are. Like for you, you came on. We thought, we were messing around. You saying you had midlife crisis and stuff, but that's our way of getting you to talk about what you need to talk about. If you are going through something, if you were depressed, midlife crisis, whatever the case may be, if you want to
Got
talk
caught
about
in
it,
the
you
vacuum cleaner.
you gonna talk about it. It That's just what it is. And I I, I get like I said, Aaron, I get your point, and I don't disagree that much, but at the same time, we have to stop enabling people, bro.
Mm.
Well, and for me, I guess, so I'll touch on something that's a little bit closer to home, maybe something we can all relate to. But I remember this one guy before he started houses and selling this stuff and doing all these
Ah.
things. There, no. So here's the thing. If we're gonna be real, this is I don't need nobody to ask me to talk about anything because I've been doing it for a long time. So Robert says, how many times can you talk about the same thing and people not want to understand or appreciate? So there was a point in time, when I'd get Robert to come to the house and we'd do things, camping, trying snowboarding, going fishing, and I would always talk about the same thing, this real estate thing, because Robert was like interested in it. So then I started doing these seminars and doing these things, and I was like, oh, we should, start flipping houses. And this guy would always ask me, we don't have money. Where's the money going to come from? And
Mhm.
I tried to express some of my insight and things that I've been learning, I guess, to be more, I didn't have the higher education or the certificate or the license that said I could do these things, but I learned some stuff to try to express or have some value towards the input of what I was saying. And it would always be, the same thing, a debate, an argument. Well, that's not true. I don't understand. I don't know. But then we take it back a few weeks ago. Now all of a sudden he's talking about flipping houses and what he learns.
Mhm.
So am I supposed to be like 100% on board and be like, you know what, that's great? Or am I supposed to be like, hey, you know what, those are some values and some mindsets that I've been trying to instill before you even sold your first house? So now am I supposed to be my authentic self and just be like, you know what, maybe we'll have a conversation that will be different now, and it will be based on evidence and facts and knowledge. And it won't be like, hey, how are we supposed to do this? I don't understand what you're talking about. Because now he has a little bit of knowledge into the realm of things that I was trying to establish.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't want to be my authentic self, I could, one, hold a grudge, and two, not speak the truth and just act like I don't know anything. Or when we sit down and maybe talk about it and start trying to develop this business plan or start trying to utilize the knowledge that we've had and the knowledge that we now have developed to make things better, if I'm not going to be my authentic self, I would just sit here and, not say anything about it. Just be like, hey, he knows it all. He's the only one that knows anything.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
At the end of the day is, if I'm going to be my authentic self allows me to understand, just like we were talking about, maybe it took a little bit of time. Maybe Robert didn't understand fully the investment opportunities and the ways to get a house without having to spend money and all this other things that he was talking about back in the day. Like, we still don't got the money. Who's going to invest in it?
But I have a question.
Now that Robert understands a business plan and a business perspective and real estate investment and opportunities and ROIs and all these things that I didn't go to the class for, but I sat and spent my money and did countless days and seminars. I'm part of Dan Miro's investment group. I'm part of Freedom Equity Investments. Like, there's a lot of things I get on the daily that I've been trying to not install, but just get some business insight. And so on the other end of it is, so I laid some investment opportunities amongst Robert that I've been doing since 2017. And it's not that I was doing it because I needed him to tell me if I'm doing it right or if I'm doing it wrong. I'm thinking more of, the philanthropist area, the entrepreneur area. Like, if we're all understanding of rate of returns and investments versus, all this stuff that we've been talking about, spending time versus investing time. Like, my downfall has been people who don't see you succeeding and don't see you establishing yourself, whether it's the beginning or the ends, they're not going to really be true to you. They're not going to be authentic to who you are. So because I don't have a business, or I ain't selling houses, or I'm not establishing myself as an entrepreneur, because of the setbacks that I have, whether they're personal, financial, family, or just that I'm lazy, if I'm not 100% myself, I would just use that as power to just be like, oh, you know what? Maybe it'll never happen. Maybe nobody will ever think the way I think. Maybe nobody will ever understand my perspective. But still, at the end of the day, I'm still true to myself, and I'm still waiting not for that acknowledgement or the applaud from somebody, but just, that moment where, I guess I'm going to sit down and have a conversation one-on-one about something that was presented to me. And whether I'm knowledgeable in that area or I'm just learning, I'm going to put all this stuff that we've been talking about, my mindset, my ego, my self-worth, my time, my investments, my well-being. Like, if it's something that you feel is valuable and that you feel you can invest some of your time in, and there's a reason that you're investing your time in, like, at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be back and forth, left or right. It needs to be more of, I'm going to listen, you're going to listen, we're going to understand each other's knowledge, we're going to grow from that knowledge, and then maybe something will grow from all of us putting our knowledge into one pot. But if everybody's knowledge is better than everybody else's, and everybody else knows more, and everybody else has a better opinion, nobody's going to be their authentic selves. And that's just like, you don't have to sit here and listen, and you can do the sighs and the smirks and all that other
No,
stuff, but that's
I'm
just
just
real
waiting.
stuff.
I'm just waiting.
We just laugh. Like,
I'm just waiting.
Here's the thing, bro.
I gotta pee
Hold
real
on.
quick. I'll be right back.
This guy, how you gonna pee in the middle of the podcast, bro?
Y'all keep it's we've
You
been
better
going
hold it, son.
I can't.
This guy.
We've been going for a minute.
This man, listen,
Let
man.
me-
This is the point I gotta say to this real quick. Is that you could never hold a grudge against Fitz because that's the seed that you planted in him. No matter if he took the advice or he didn't, you planted that seed in that gym in him, and now it has grown into what it is today. And I think you have to accept from outsider. I accept Fitz for who he is. If we ever talk about real estate, if we ever talk about ROIs, we're talking about investments. I'm gonna listen more than I'm gonna talk to Fitz because he knows it. Regardless if he had a certificate, regardless if he did this, he put all the time and effort into learning those things. So I'm gonna sit there and listen to him and let him guide me and lead me to where I need to be. And whatever I pick up on the way, we can coerce and talk about that. But I think some of the points that Aaron was saying was, I would say not even out of pocket, but just
They
like
was out of pocket.
that's
out of pocket.
that's who he is, man. Like, and I think his confidence comes off as he's better than everybody else, or Fitz is just 100% confident.
But it's not even confidence because we're talking about different things though.
But
I didn't come to Aaron with the problem. I didn't come to him talking about I wanted to invest. He started talking to me about it.
I think a lot of people mistake your confidence for you being Mr. Know-it-all, 100%. Because you have the knowledge. We could talk about anything on this podcast, and Fitz is gonna have some type of knowledge about it. Now, when it comes to real estate, that's his game. That's his specialty. That's his skill. So
why is it his skill though? Because he does
because
it
of the
for
time and the
living, or
effort.
because-
No. Because of the time and effort he put into it.
But let me say this real quick because I want to talk on this because this is where I think being your authentic self is like what I was talking about as far as talking to people, like somebody talking to you about a problem over and over again, and then it just being like, I can't talk about it. Aaron said it himself. He started talking to me about real estate and I was asking him questions. And I didn't go to him with the problem and say, hey, I want to invest in real estate. I have this problem. Can you help me? And then he was like, well, you need to do this, this, and this. And then the next time he saw me, he was like, you need to do this, this, and this. I didn't go to him with the problem. He came to me with an idea and I was asking questions. That's different than somebody coming to you with a problem and they keep coming to you with the same problem. I wasn't into real estate investing then. I was asking him questions and he would get upset when I asked questions because the answers he gave didn't make sense to me.
But now that you learned the new knowledge, you understand about the questions you were asking and why you'd always ask, like, I don't understand where the money would come from. But now you understand a little bit more. Okay, so now here we go.
But what does that have to do with me having a problem?
This is what I was going to set us up on. Having a problem is the same thing as asking questions.
It's not, because I didn't have a problem. I wasn't trying to invest.
If I come to you with a problem and I want you to invest some time in my situation.
In your situation, not mine.
So if anybody comes to anybody with a problem, whether it's financial, relationship, work obligations, people do not come to you with the mindset of this is my problem, please help me. People come to you with an idea and questions so that you can develop some opinions so they can ask more questions. But if the people aren't willing to understand the answers to the questions, and they're always, like you say, going to keep asking the same question to the same problem, then yes, it does become a little bit overwhelming and a little bit exhausting and a little bit redundant. But at the same time, if you know one day all that redundancy is going to pay off, it's not only going to pay off for the person who has the problem and is not asking the questions, but they're asking questions about their problem. If eventually they're able to solve their problem and you influenced or had conversations or interactions with that problem, at the end of the day, I guess you can look at it as the redundancy and the annoyance and the ignorancy that you felt at that moment all of a sudden can translate into something different, because now I'm not thinking about, you know, they came to me 565,000 times about how they're on food stamps and selling their food stamps for drugs and still not eating food. And I figured out how to help them understand that, well, the reason why you're not eating food is because you're selling your food stamps. And now they realize if I don't sell my food stamps, now I have food. If you were part of that solution, or you had just a little bit of influence to make them change their mindset and understand something different or think on a different path, that's what we're doing here right now.
But it's different though, because I'm not coming to you asking you how to solve my food stamp problem.
You weren't coming to me. I was
telling me
coming
how
to you.
solve it.
Okay, so I was coming to you to tell you how to solve your problem. No, I was giving you insight on things that I've learned and opinions and things that I've been doing. Okay, but that's the same thing.
It's not though, because one of them you're coming. If you come to me with something,
yes, Robert, there is a difference between somebody telling you something and somebody asking you something. Yes, we can agree on that. That's basic 5th grade stuff.
What did I ask
at the
you
end
about
of the
real
day,
estate?
You never asked me nothing.
Okay, so then you can never say that I drained you or I was disrespectful because you came to me with it. I
never said drain. The word draining or disrespectful never came out of my mouth when I.
That's what we were talking about. That's what we were talking about, is people that constantly come to you and keep having the same conversations over and over again. You were relating that to you telling me about real estate.
It's the same thing though. We had conversations and you kept on asking how many times can you talk to somebody about something
that they bring to you. If you bring up if you bring something up to me.
Okay, so what I'm asking you is, I kept bringing you the same situation.
Yes.
Was that annoying for you?
It's not annoying. It's just, if I'm saying, well, we don't have the money to do it right now, and you're saying you don't need.
If I tell you the reason, if I tell you how we could get the money, how is that a problem?
It's not a problem, but if it was, if it could be done, how come it's not done?
Now all of a sudden that you're in a different situation and you're a different person. No, you have more means to do things. How is that different from when you didn't?
It's different because you're making it seem like you came to me with something and that I was actually like.
I did come to you with something though.
You came to me with something and you're making it seem like I'm ungrateful because I didn't make a move.
No. The words ungrateful never came out of my mouth.
Well, what are you trying to say about me?
So here's the thing. You always get stuck on you. I was
because you brought me up.
Example. Exactly, because we're trying to relate. You're trying to tell me that if I come to you with a problem or a circumstance, or if you came to me with a problem or a circumstance, that those aren't the same exact thing.
They're not. If I come to you with a problem and I keep coming to you with the same problem over and over and over again, and I never listen to you, at some point, I think you have the right to say, I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Okay.
But I never came to you with the real estate problem.
If we keep on going down the same problem, and you keep on saying it's a problem, but if we keep having the same conversation about the same thing until we either figure out that somebody's stupid or somebody knows more, or we both understand that we're on the same page, how is that different than somebody coming and saying, hey, my life is in shambles, please help me?
Because it's different because advice. You bring it up. If you bring up the real estate conversations, you can never then turn around and say, I'm the one that is doing anything towards you, or that you're tired of the conversation because you're the one bringing it up. I'm not bringing.
But then again, this is where I'm trying to go, at least for myself. I brought it up many of times.
Yes.
But I also brought it up many of times because if somebody else brought problems to me, I don't care how many times they would bring it to me, because of who I am, I'm going to continue to go down that road.
That's a personal decision.
Exhausting.
I'm not like that. I'm
So
different.
now, since we're talking about our authentic self, all I was trying to do is give you examples of my authentic self. And I know you're different.
What is your authentic self in that situation? Because I'm still unclear. Like, what are you saying? Because it sounds like you're saying that you told me one thing, and that because now I'm in a different position in life, now I'm receiving the information. And when you were telling me it, I wasn't receiving the information, but that's not true because I still don't have an investment property because I still don't have the money. Just like I didn't have the money then, I don't have the money now. When I get the money, I'll do it. So the
So
situation is
that's a
not
problem,
different.
right?
That
That's a
is a
problem,
problem.
right?
The problem is I don't have the
So
money.
when
The
somebody's
problem
talking to
was I
you
didn't have
about
the money.
so when somebody's talking to you about a problem and a possible situation that can improve the problem,
Yes.
and it's not even real estate, maybe it's the girl we were talking about where her husband blew his head off. Can we say that those are still the same thing? Somebody is trying to either one, express something to you, or two, take something that you've expressed and give an opinion about how something can change based on the problem that you're presenting.
Yes, it's the same thing to me. If
So just
talking
like we
about it.
said, just like we said,
Go.
and just like Ty said, the end goal, there has to be an end goal, right? The situation always has to end in something.
What was your end goal by talking to me about real estate?
Everything.
But
More of what you're
specifically,
doing now. What you were talking about a few weeks ago. Oh, we should start flipping houses and doing things. There's an end goal. I don't know if it was because we talked and argued about it and you didn't have money and I said I didn't have money, but I know how we could get money. And now still, we're still talking about it, but neither of us have money, but we know how we could try to get money. Wasn't the whole reason, I guess, for me bringing you the circumstance is to that you could start thinking about the problem that I've had amongst trying to develop myself in the same area that you were going so that we could talk about it and maybe develop that end goal.
what are 3 practical things that you guys would advise somebody to be their authentic self?
Don't waste your time helping people to 501 time. Be true to who you are. It goes beyond what you do for a living, what possessions you own, and who you are to somebody. If you don't want to be empathetic to nobody, you don't have to. You can be who you want to be. And those who don't like it, you know where they can go.
All right, Aaron.
I feel the same way.
Finally, you agree with something that the younger man has said.
Yes, sir.
So my 3 pieces of advice for anybody looking to be their authentic self is 1, invest in yourself. Try to develop yourself so that you know who you are and what you are willing to and what you're not willing to accept in your life. 2, put yourself in environments that are going to allow you to thrive. That goes along with knowing who you are and what environments you thrive best in. And 3, I would just say constant learning. Like don't think because you know one thing right now that's the same forever. Always be on the path of constant learning. Challenge yourself. Find new ways to challenge yourself,
Ego.
and keep pushing.
Everybody look at my $40,000 ego.
All right.
From the bottom.
From the bottom, Aaron, you got any final words?